Hey, this is your girl, Terrell Ravenel, founder and visionary behind the Wives Who Win movement and the Married Couples Who Win Training Center. Today we are talking about sex before marriage. Yes, we're talking about sex before marriage and how premarital sex can reduce the quality of your marriage. But not to lose hope here, because I'm also going to be sharing in the upcoming weeks how you can restore that sex and restore that love back into the marriage, even if you did have premarital sex with your spouse or with other partners. So if you want to know how sex can reduce the quality of the marriage and how you can restore that quality back into the marriage after having premarital sex or fornicating, then this video is for you. Please share and subscribe. See ya.
Living now. This is living now.
And everyone dry. Hey, this is your girl, Terrell Ravenel, founder and visionary behind the Wives Who Win movement and the Married Couples Who Win Training Center. This is our week where we are talking about sex. Oh, dude. Yes, we are talking about sex, and in particular, we are talking about ways how premarital sex can affect the marriage covenant. Now, this is not going to be a Debbie Downer, and this is not going to be just to discourage anyone or to make you feel convicted or bad for having sex before marriage, because many of us have been there and done that. However, it is to shed some light on your current state, the current state of your marriage, in particular for those that may be having issues in the bedroom or have lost interest or drive, or the sex life is not where it needs to be or what it needs to be. This is to shed some light on that and hope that it will give you an understanding as to why, and then what you need to do in order to restore the sex and the love back into the bedroom, in particularly. Before I go any further, I'm asking that you guys make sure you like this video and also subscribe to my channel. You can do that right when you're on the video. Just like the video and also subscribe to the channel, because every week a new video is produced, and I would hate for you to miss it because you're not notified of when the videos come out. So we're going to get right in it. And what I want to share with you guys today are some reasons why, or a few reasons why sex before marriage can reduce the quality of the marriage. Again, I'm going to say it: sex before marriage can reduce the quality before marriage. I've been reading and studying and doing some some light research on the topic at hand, and I've talked about this before. I actually did a video on it before years ago, and I also did like a devotion. I talked about this during one of my devotions that I did through Wives Who Win before as well, because I know how important it is for sex to be to play a vital role in the marriage. And too often when we get married, we have less sex. Before marriage, many of us were out there, myself included, we were fornicating and just doing whatever it is that we wanted to do. But then when we got in the marriage covenant, it seems like the sex life diminished greatly, and we want to deal with that at a great level on today and the weeks to come. So according to Galena Rhodes, she says that individuals who had more sexual partners or more experience cohabitating before marriage are not likely to have a quality marriage compared with those who had less. So basically, those who had several partners, multiple sexual partners before, or even experienced any level of cohabitating, and that's that's living together before marriage. Basically, what she's saying is that reduces the quality of the marriage compared to those who had less. You may be asking, well, why is that? Why is it because I had, sexual partners, I cohabitated, and we're going to get into the why of that. But I have found that to be true, because it definitely diminishes the quality of the marriage, because you have a clouded perception of what sex is. Once you get in the marital covenant and you want to have that great sex life with your husband or with your wife because you've done it so many times with so many other people, you can definitely diminish the quality of that marriage covenant. And we definitely want to talk about that on today, and again as the weeks are to come. Okay, I thought my video stopped. Okay, so I was reading another some tidbits from an article in Cardoso, I believe her name is she mentioned 6 reasons why sex before marriage can affect a relationship, and I talked about how premarital sex gives couples the intimacy at the wrong time. So basically, if you're out here, you're having sex, and for those that, because I have single women that watch this video as well, those that are in waiting that watch these videos as well, premarital sex, it allows for intimacy at the wrong time. Intimacy is not a bad thing, but both intimacy and sex were created for the marriage covenant. It was never intended for us to have sex before marriage or to be intimate and have that loving oneness and connectivity or bond with a man or with a woman before the marriage covenant. But we know that it has happened, and it continues to happen for so many times, so many times to come. And let me just tell you a few of those reasons. Number one is feelings of jealousy and possessiveness that arise in relationships in which couples are engaged in premarital sex develops as a result of them having sex at the wrong time. So you have these feelings of jealousy, and you feel like you possess or you own the person, before you even get into a marriage covenant. And let's just say this, even when you're in a marriage covenant, you should not have jealousy. You should not feel possessive or as if you own somebody or you're controlling someone. Everybody is their own individual person. But what intimacy and sex does beforehand, before marriage, what it does is it creates these feelings of jealousy and possessiveness. Because number one, the person does not belong to you because there is no commitment. I don't care if you've been together for weeks, years, months, or decades. If you're not married, there is no level of commitment, and you feel at liberty per se to walk out of the marriage covenant, out of the relationship at any given time, because there is nothing really keeping you together. Marriage is a God idea. So if you're not married under, God's ordinance, you have no reason for staying there. You can leave at any given time, so there is no commitment. Number two, for women and especially, we surrender our bodies in the sexual relationship, right? So we give ourselves totally and committedly in the sexual relationships, and a lot of times when the men don't reciprocate that, and I'm talking about in a boyfriend girlfriend status, dating status, when they don't reciprocate that, women in particular, us, we're left psychologically broken, mentally broken. So not only are we hurt, our feelings hurt emotionally, but mentally we're left broken as well. Hence why sex before marriage can damage and reduce the quality, because once we get into that marriage relationship, sometimes we're thinking about all of the times we were hurt before, the times that our heart was hurt before, the times that our emotions were hurt before. We're connecting that relationship before with the relationship that we have now with our husband, hence reducing the quality of the marriage. Number three, the course of our life can change, especially for those of us that had children outside of marriage, those of us that had children with someone other than our husbands, other than your wife. Now you have to accept the other person into the marriage covenant because you decided to marry someone with children. And most women, I know when I got pregnant at the very young age of 17, I wasn't ready to be a mom, right? I wasn't ready to raise a child and to give somebody life. I had no idea, no clue. And because I had a son, yes, it made relationships harder and more challenging because I was bringing in another person into this relationship. Okay. Number four, premarital sex more often than not is not out of love. You're not doing it because you love the person. A lot of times it's because of pleasure. It's because you want to be satisfied. Let's just get it together. Biologically, how we're structured and how God created us is to desire sex. So desiring sex, there's nothing wrong with that. But having sex outside of marriage, that's where we find the issue at. Okay. It's a selfish act mixed with messages amongst those involved in a relationship. So sex before marriage is a selfish act because most times you just want to get off. You're horny. You're feeling, your body temperature is rising and you're full with lust, and you just want to satisfy that pleasure. You want to be satisfied and you want to feel that pleasure. And then number five, emotional and psychological problems like depression, physical problems like contracting a sexual transmitted disease. All of these things we know can occur before marriage. And so let's say you had children, let's say you did contract a sexual committed disease that may not be curable, right, but is manageable. Let's say you have to deal with the ex. Let's say you have all these feelings of jealousy and all these insecurities, and now you get into a marriage, right? So now you get into the marriage with the love of your life, but you never dealt with those things beforehand. So now you're dealing with, oh my God, I have this disease. Oh my God, I'm still dealing with depression or oppression because my ex hurt me, or because my ex before that hurt me, or my son's father, or my mother's children, or whatever the case may be. You're dealing with the fact that you had to surrender your body, and not only did you surrender your body to one man, but maybe 5 or 10 or whatever, and not being judgmental toward anybody, but I'm just saying this just to make a point. So all of these things you have to take in consideration of when you get into now a marriage, how these things are going to affect your marriage with your husband or wife. And that may be the reason why so many marriages are suffering when it comes to the sexual relationship, because they have all of these issues beforehand, and a lot of times these things don't get dealt with. You know, a lot of times we just go into the marriage covenant and we feel like everything is going to be fine and grandiose, and then we run into these bumps and bruises, and we're trying to figure out, okay, why we're not having sex, you know, or why we're not having sex often. Why is our sex life not not great? Why is it just seem like a hit it and quit it type situation? Why are we not taking the time to be close and to have oneness and to enjoy one another? You know, why is that there? And I know that's a story for so many people. I know when I got married, I had a misconception of sex because I had multiple partners before marriage, because I did things outside of God's covenant and God's will. You know, I had all of these things that were haunting me per se, and was affecting my mindset and also my emotions as it related to sex. And yes, that did affect my marriage covenant. So we know that marriage is a legally binding agreement between a husband and wife, and we know that the marriage is solidified when consummation take place. And what happens is that if you're having sex before marriage, or if you've had sex before marriage, you consummated your marriage several times before. You've consummated and you've solidified the marriage several times before with people that are not even your husband, and people that are not even your wife. And people don't realize the significance behind this, and how this definitely reduces the quality of your life, number one, and also reduces the quality of your marriage. Sex before marriage is two people who are not married. They've decided to get into a covenant or a committed legal relationship, and they're sleeping together. And the danger of that happens, the danger of that normally happens after the intercourse, right? We feel the effects after that. In the moment it feels good and we're having a good time, we're enjoying it, but the aftermath of that, and those are things that we have to start thinking about. So my single men and my women that are on here, you're in relationships, or you're having sex right now, you're not married, start thinking about how that's going to affect your marriage, if that's something that you're going to desire, in the long run. Think about how that's going to affect your partner. Don't think about it as just you want to get off, you want to get, you're horny, or you want to, you want to feel that gratification, or whatever it is that you want to fulfill. Don't think of it like that. Think of it like, okay, how is this going to affect my life in the future? How is this going to affect my marriage in the future? That's one reason why God didn't want us to have premarital sex. That's why he said flee from fornication. Your body is a temple of the Lord, to treat it as such, because he knew the ramifications of what premarital sex and can do to a marriage, how that can affect your relationships, right? I was reading another article and it was talking about the same thing of premarital sex experiences and how it affects the marriage. And I'm gonna give you a few of these things, and next week we're going to talk about how you restore the marriage. So I don't want you to lose hope. I don't want you to feel condemned or feel bad, because we all have fallen short to the glory of God. But what I do want is for you to have a better understanding of how premarital sex has affected your marriage, even now or in the past, so you can put the two and two together, and not thinking, okay, there was something wrong with me, or there was something wrong with him, or he couldn't satisfy me, or she couldn't satisfy me. That was not the case. What was the problem is that you had a misperception and a preconceived notion of how sex was, or what it was all about. And when you got into the marriage, you didn't do the necessary things in order to restore that love in that marriage relationship. So here's a few things I want to share with you. Multiple partners mean multiple experiences. right? So if you've had multiple partners in the past, that means that you've had multiple experiences, and chances are your mind is on those experiences. So you could be having sex with your husband, you could be having sex with your wife, and thinking about Julia, and thinking about John, or Tom, or Jeanette, or whomever, because those people are still in your mind. You're still playing those experiences in your mind, and we have to get those things out of our mind and out of our system. Number two, talked a little bit about this already. Children come as a result of sex before marriage. So now you have to deal with the ex. Now you have to deal with the ex family members, the ex mother-in-law, the ex father-in-law, the ex grandparents, aunties, uncles, and really depending on how long your relationship was with that ex, when produced children, you may have close knitted and connected relationships with exes and their peoples. So that can definitely affect your marriage, and it can affect, because if your marriage is affected, if you and your husband, you and your wife are not on the same page, you're arguing, you're having issues, having problems, chances are you're not in the bedroom. Chances are you're not being intimate. So that's going to affect the marriage covenant, and it's going to affect the bedroom as well. Number three, comparing and contrasting sexual experiences with your current spouse. Sometimes you subconsciously do that. Because you've had other partners, sometimes you subconsciously compare to the other partner, especially if you were in this very seductive relationship full of lust, and this person satisfied every part of your physical being and was able to stimulate your mind and do other things. Your mind may take you there every now and again, and you will find yourself subconsciously comparing and contrasting the two people, right? Number four, I talked about contracting a sexual transmitted disease and how this can affect your partner. How it's going to affect your right now relationship because you choose to have sex outside of marriage. Negative effects of unwanted pregnancies, abortions, these things, addiction to sex, lack of self-control, not having enough sex and having too much sex is just as bad, because when you can't control your desires and you can't control your sexual gratification and wants, then that can affect the marriage covenant, and that can affect the bedroom. Because what if your partner is not as high strung as you? What if they don't want to have sex every day or twice a day or whatever it is that you desire to do? You have to get those things under control. And then the last thing that I want to share is decreasing of sex drive. Why? Because you've had multiple partners and multiple experiences, because you've had, there are issues that are arising in the marriage because of the exes, because of the children that are involved. You're comparing and contrasting because your mind and your emotions sometimes take you back to John, Bob, Julie, or Jeanette, right? You may have contracted a sexual transmitted disease. You have had a negative effect of unwanted pregnancies, or may have had abortions in the past, and now you and your husband or you and your wife are trying to get married and trying to have a baby, and it's not happening. So many things, you guys. And again, I just want to bring awareness. If you've been having issues in the marriage covenant as it relates to sex in the bedroom, as it relates to intimacy, these are probably the reasons why. Is a great chance these are the reasons why. Lack of understanding of what sex is, lack of understanding of the purpose of sex and why it was meant for the covenant relationship. And if you're on here, you're saying, well, I didn't have sex before marriage, I was a virgin, but I did kind of play around with my partner, all of that, or with somebody else or with some other people, those things too can affect the marriage covenant, because you still crossed a line, right? You still crossed a line. And even if you didn't cross the line, you may have a lack of understanding of sex or what it's supposed to do for the marriage and how it's supposed to build the marriage. You may have that lack of understanding because you didn't have that experience. So there can be so many reasons why. But here's the thing, there is hope. There is hope, and there is therefore now no condemnation to those that are in Christ Jesus. We know that all things are passed away, and behold, all things are become new. So there is hope, and there is hope for your marriage. There is hope for the sex in your marriage. But guess what? It's going to take time, and it's going to take work on your end. And next week, I'm going to share with you exactly how to do that. How do you restore and recover? How do you get over all of those hurdles and all of those humps? How do you get back in the bedroom and be able to enjoy your spouse and be able to have the sexual relationship that God intended for you to have? Yes, He intended for you to have sex with your spouse. He intended for you to enjoy the sexual relationship without any ramifications, right? Guilt-free, shame-free, embarrassment-free, just enjoying one another on a regular basis. So next week, we will talk about that. So if this video has blessed you at all, please do share, please do like it, please subscribe to my channel, because every week a new video is coming out, and I would hate for you to miss it because you are unsubscribed from the channel. Please share. All right, until next time, see you next week.
Your love